All right, we're live. All right, guys, welcome back to the NLF Coaching Podcast. Today's guest, we have Andrew Coates joining us. So, guys, if you aren't familiar with Andrew Coates, he's a big name in the industry. He has a podcast of his own, does a lot of the online coaching, and he's in the education space. He's been a personal trainer for quite a while. So, Andrew, give us a little bit of background of how you got into coaching and kind of what you do currently.
All right. So I'm still a full-time in-person personal trainer, even with the online stuff, even with, presentations and the podcast and what have you. I started a career in personal training kind of later in life compared to most. I wasn't the 20-year-old, passionate coach. Went to business school. I've owned a nightclub. I've worked in casinos. I've worked in banks, car sales, even just briefly, way back when. And I always loved lifting. I've always been athletic growing up. I competed at a reasonably high level, young, in cross-country skiing, played high school basketball. Now, rural Newfoundland didn't have a lot of opportunity for basketball, so that wasn't exactly going to go far. At 6'2" as a power forward who wasn't a great, ball handler, guess what? There was there was a ceiling there. But I liked the gym. I got really serious about it finally at 24. I've had a weight bench since I was in my teens. And that became a really big part of my life through my mid to late 20s. There were definitely some side quests with owning the nightclub that interfered. Those things didn't coexist super well. But I moved across the country at 28 and just got really set back in the gym. That became life. And then at 32 years of age, I was hired off the gym floor. I kept saying no. This gym kept wanting me to hey, you should be a trainer. Nah, I'm not interested. Got busy quickly, really loved it, did well with retention, with referrals, and pretty quickly, what didn't take a couple of years, and I'm the top session producing training trainer in the company, which, okay, there's some validation there, and loved it. And, I left that company after 6 years, went out on my own. And then that's when I got really serious about writing, which led to writing opportunities for things like T Nation, Generation Iron, bodybuilding.com, Muscle Fitness, Men's Health, a bunch of the other things that a lot of diehards would recognize. The publishing world isn't what it used to be. So I got in when the timing was right, started a podcast with a friend. Now it's been my own for a long time. But along the way, I loved it. I kept doubling down, started hosting my own conference some years, got invitations to speak at other things, get invitations to come on awesome podcasts like this. So, and I'm not one of those people who's trying to graduate out of the industry. I'm not trying to graduate off the gym floor. I think that being an in-person trainer is still a very lucrative, very stable, very fulfilling and rewarding career. It's been very kind to me. So I'm not trying to retire from it.
Andrew, that's awesome. So what would you say when you got into personal training for the first time? What was what would you say the main catalyst was that you were able to pick up traction so quickly? What were the traits you felt like you had that set you apart and you really excel with the relationship building and the referrals that you mentioned?
I think people always want to go, all right, here are the behaviors I did that are easily replicable. And I think there's something to that. I think it's wise to acknowledge there is timing, circumstance, luck. I said earlier about writing for things like T Nation. Right now, T Nation doesn't have outward facing articles. Most people are actually consuming almost short form social media, video based social media as kind of the primary driver for brand and authority in the industry. It doesn't mean long form stuff, isn't valuable. And a lot of people would listen to a podcast like this to go deeper on a relational level, more nuanced information. But I was a product of the timing. When I started at the gym there weren't nearly as many gyms in the city. I was very lucky that it was a very busy gym. It was a good location. The sales staff were good at getting the trainers filled up initially. So I had a lot of luck where I think a lot of other people might not have had those advantages. Now, I think people will fight to the death over this stuff. They love to have these ideological battles over it, but I'll try to say this with nuance. If you want an easier path as a personal trainer, being in shape and walking the walk does go a long way. People get mad about when you say that stuff. No, it doesn't mean that someone being in shape actually is remotely qualified to talk about fitness and nutrition. No, that's not what I'm saying. No, I am not saying that you cannot be a brilliant, skilled, knowledgeable, and successful personal trainer if you are not outwardly, quote, in shape. What I'm saying is that we're dealing with real people and their perceptions. And perception is reality for people. And if they are in a gym and they look at two trainers, there are going to be a lot of signals. If someone's looking at trainers on the gym floor, how engaged are they with clients? Are the clients getting results? Just what is that trainer's demeanor and presence and persona? Well, one of the first things that people notice is, whether or not you're in shape. And in shape is nebulous and is defined differently based upon who you're coaching. And I'll use example. If you have a, long-term, very overweight, overfat, bodybuilding, physique prep coach, well, that's incongruent with what you would expect of someone who's coaching that. If you have a very weak powerlifting coach who doesn't compete, that is going to make things a little bit harder. And people can scream the high hell and up and down. And again, they will use the argument that, well, just because you look a certain way doesn't mean you're a good coach. But the opposite is also not true. And the point is it is going to be a more challenging road for a trainer if you aren't. I'll put it a couple of different ways. One, if you are struggling in a career as a fitness professional and you are not as busy as you want to be, you have abundance of time, one of the highest ROI behaviors is to do everything within your power to work at visibly changing and improving, contextually in shape. Okay. That's wise. You are going to generate proof. One of the best things you can do to be relatable to lifestyle people is to have a transformation. If you're someone who has undergone a significant transformation, massive weight loss, and maybe you don't look the stereotypical, not that trainers need to be like super jacked and super ripped, but if you have a visible transformation and then people can see it, it's on your media, et cetera, boy, does it make you relatable. That's really, really attractive to a general population client. Okay. And yeah, I think that kind of hits that one pretty well.
Yeah, no, I really like the point you made about taking care of your physique, because at the end of the day, your physique is a business card. I think we live in a day where people really want to like sugarcoat things and be really sensitive about these topics. But I think it is important to be very transparent about the fact that like people are looking at you when they see you on the gym floor, and like if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not walking the walk and living the lifestyle, like that does resonate with people. Like people do notice those things.
It's the first thing to do this. I mean, it goes across the board for if you look at any industry in what they do, like it doesn't matter. They're going to look exactly what they can see first. It's their first point of contact of like, what am I looking at? They can't stop it. That's exactly what they're going to look for. It's like, I'm not going to look for a trainer that's not going through what I want to go through.
Yeah. It's the same as like an overweight doctor trying to tell you need to clean your diet up. Like you're going to be like, all right, that's the pot calling the kettle black.
Try to remember that. Yes. I think most of the people we're working with, lifestyle, the people who it's not an automatic switch and they do everything perfectly, right? That's maybe 1 in 20, 1 in 50 clients. That's a unicorn client. And, early personal trainers get one of those clients and they tell the person what to do. And then they just adhere to everything, get great results. And then every trainer decides that's who I want to work with. And then their messaging is like this, if you're not this, then I don't want to work with you. But what you don't understand is those are unicorns. Largely, they don't even need you. It's everybody else who doesn't find it easy, who has real life challenges where there's friction. They deal with food noise. There's so much competition for their time, their energy, and they're finding it challenging. That's where real coaching is. Yes. And that's the most fulfilling thing when you help those people. But if those people are struggling with it and they look at you and you turn around and say, well, I don't have the time. I have this, and this, and this perfectly valid justification. Well, they have all those same perfectly valid justifications. If they are hearing from you or observing from you that you're not able to do it in the face of the limited time and challenge and everything, well, then they're not going to have the confidence that you can actually help them. And some people are going to take that a little harsh, and people are going to weave narrative to fight any way, shape, or form to fit their ideological narrative. The reality is, if you are a personal trainer and you want to be successful, one of the highest ROI behaviors is still making sure that you have some pretty firm boundaries around what's going on with you. And someone's going to say, well, I have this medical condition. Guess what? There are the amount of medical conditions that explicitly make it near impossible to, quote, physically stay within sort of a fairly wide band of what we might consider to be in shape is so small as to almost not be relevant at all. Okay?
Yeah. So would you say, like, since we're on the coaching kick right now, what would you say, like, is that one of your number one reasons with new trainers and coaches starting out? Is that where you see them fail the most? Is that like your top list of like they didn't do it? Where would you say
No,
like young trainers?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And the funny is, as much as attention as we pay to that, I think that it's almost the opposite. You have a lot of, probably young people who maybe there's a good dose of genetics that, because this is relevant too, right? There's a good dose of genetics that makes it simply easier. Their starting point is easier when it comes to how they look. You're definitely going to have, it's in our world, performance enhancing drugs. There's going to be a lot of people who, through a combination of genetics and performance enhancing drugs and what have you, that they enter the industry because they look a certain way, not because they actually know what the hell they're doing. So it's the other end of things, and the argument that, the other side tends to take on this one, and they're right. And I think it's a combination of that lack of skill and knowledge, almost the hubris of thinking that it's easy. Well, why can't someone else do it because I found it so damn easy? Meanwhile, you're fairly young and you haven't actually faced any real challenges. You don't have a lot of the lifestyle friction that the clients have. Therefore, you don't relate to them very well. And platitudes like, oh, we all have the same 24 hours in the day. You just have to try a little bit harder. Like, that bullshit will drive people away really quickly.
Absolutely.
The bottleneck is almost invariably communication, personality, just the way that you approach people. Yes, there are trainers who walk into a gym situation. The gym isn't busy enough or doesn't have a system to help that trainer get busy. That trainer doesn't have the kind of like social network where they can attract clientele. So they're starting off in a challenging place anyway. And maybe the limited number of people they get, those trainers are making, they're struggling with the communication side. They're struggling to relate to people, because when it comes down to it, maybe, and I heard Jordan Shallow say something like this recently on his RxD radio podcast, and Jordan and the two Jordans, Jordan Junta and Jordan Shallow, are brilliant. They're great resources for trainers, for coaches, for biomechanics. But it's like you hit a certain point where maybe 10% of what you're doing is technical training stuff. It's cueing people. Is once you've got the exercise selection, you get someone moving well. And especially if you're an in-person trainer where you're spending a lot of time with these people, it's almost entirely relationship based. And if you struggle to communicate, if you struggle to bond and find common ground with these people, they're choosing to spend time with you. And people stay for results, absolutely, but they tend to stay for the best relationships. I have a lot of clients who, it's a wonderful point of accountability, right? They absolutely could function independently. There's definitely some people who probably could, but they tend to get a little off track. So they've done cycles as they know, hey, I'm going to go see Andrew once a week. It is really high ROI in terms of keeping them accountable and consistent. But I have lots of people who absolutely have the skill and the knowledge and functionally independent and consistent, where they don't need me. They stay because they get a tremendous ROI on our relationship, talking, communication. I've got a client, he's an older gentleman, definitely benefits from the accountability, but a lot of our conversation, he's an author and we talk about writing. I love writing. I study writing. So therefore, there's so much depth and skill involved in some of these conversations. And he gets to stress test things that he's doing. The ROI for him on his writing has been very high. So I'm in the acknowledgements of 2 of his books that he's written.
Yeah.
Right? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I like that. One point I really wanted to touch on with that is for younger trainers, I think the relationship building doesn't come as naturally with lifestyle clients because we just don't have the experience. Like 5 years ago, before I had kids, it was really easy for me to say, well, we all have the same 24 hours. And tell that to a client that had 3 kids, a full-time job, and had to get their kids to soccer practice, right? It's like I would say those things to people and then be like, yeah, they should just toughen up and do it. And then fast forward to now and you're like, oh, I get it. So it makes me so much more relatable. And JT's obviously got several kids. I've just got one. But when you have that experience, you're so much more relatable to clients. And I think it makes the relationship building side of it so much easier because you're walking in the same walk that they are, and you can actually understand where they're coming from when they tell you about the obstacles that they're trying to work around.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the areas, like, because typically people get into this industry at a really young age, and so that's one of the biggest challenges to navigate early on. Is you don't have any responsibility. When you just have your responsibility is just to train people and work out, like that's the simplest it's ever going to be. So it is hard to be like step into the shoes of some of your clients and understand where they're actually struggling at.
Well, you see that so many times in the industry of like, I've got 16 certifications and I actually have no experience, and there's nobody that's going to go to them. They're online spitting all this knowledge of like, I know this and I know that. Look at all the technical things I know and all the terminology, and then they're just screaming online trying to get clients, and clients aren't relating to them. And that's a business, like that's where they're I feel like they're failing the most, is like, you're not being relatable. You're not saying things in the way they can understand it and say, oh man, I like this guy. Automatically, that's where they're going to connect. It's like,
I would go as far as to say that, young trainers, let's say like late teen, early 20 somethings, are at a disadvantage. Starting at that age, I think you're at a massive disadvantage. I mean, there are so many people. I mean, there's pros and cons. You have a longer runway, right? If you get in a good environment, you figure out the relationship, the professionalism stuff early, and you nail that stuff. And and then the clientele of different ages, they come in. There's markers of trust and authority. You work at a great facility. You have a great reputation, referral, word of mouth reputation that builds over time. I think you have to guard that stuff very jealously. And I think the younger you are, the easier it is to probably get caught up in the young lifestyle stuff that happens. I work with young trainers who are very professional, very caring. I found that for a lot of them, I mean, statistically, we just see a lot of turnover in the industry. I think sometimes young ones wash out because they just, for whatever reason, it's not suitable for them. They struggle. I think a lot of them graduate out into other types of careers because they believe those other careers are more stable and secure. Okay, maybe, depends. But I suspect a lot of them also, I've observed a lot that have tripped up on professional fouls. I mean, I can think of young trainers who, just the behavior on the gym floor was really awful. I can think of one trainer I work with, surprisingly for a fairly long period of time, would brag about sleeping with his clients, which is, a no-no. It's like my friend Chad Lander says, like, if you're going to sleep with the clients, marry them. And Chad is an icon of the industry. He's been personal training for over 30 years. If you ever want to get into his story, he's a great follow for coaches on that side of things. He just wrote a book, and Duff McKagan's his old client, and Duff wrote the foreword, right? So Chad has worked with celebrities. He's in North Hollywood. But outside of that, this trainer would routinely miss, not Chad, this other person, miss morning sessions. And we would see him on video, like jaw going. He's visibly on cocaine, still partying, like late in the late morning when he's supposed to be at the gym training clients. And we had a manager who was covering it up for him. We wasn't sending the reports up the chain because they were buddies, and this stuff went on for a really long time. But, and that's an extreme example, but is it, right? So if the younger trainers are still kind of caught up in some of the wilder lifestyle behavior stuff, these things don't tend to work out very well, and they tend to wash out.
Yeah, I would agree. And just so one thing I wanted to touch on with you, you mentioned it earlier briefly. Obviously, you have your hand in a lot of different areas of the field with some education things, mentoring, online coaching, and then you're still doing full-time coaching in person. So in an era where everyone's trying to get off the gym floor and get into the online space, like what's driven you to stay on the gym floor when you had the opportunity to potentially scale off the gym floor more? Like what's been the driver for you to stay in person when so many people are trying to get away from the gym floor, it seems like?
There's a lot of stuff here. I'll try to break it all down. I mean, I really enjoy it, but I'm going to talk about the state of the online fitness industry. Now, a lot of this stuff is narrative. It is my own narrative because I seem to do really well with the in-person. Yes, I do have online coaching business. And when it really boils down to it, my online coaching revenue just alone is more now than my first year full-time in-person training 16 years ago. So it's like, it's not like it's a tiny portion of what I do, but I think, okay, for me, I function better on the schedule of having scheduled clients that I get to see. It is valuable social time. Many of those clients are people I like spending time with all of them. Some of them are very close friends of mine. Some of it's very personally enriching and rewarding. It's good for my mental health. It keeps me on my feet more versus sitting in front of a desk a lot. It keeps my step count higher. I think it is very good for my physical and mental health. Right? All those things I think are true. I am biased to believe that it is more sustainable. I have longer term online one-on-one clients who I've been with for years. They tend to, self-select, but they certainly turn over. Yes, in-person clientele also turn over. But I feel like it is still easier to maintain and build an in-person clientele than it is an online clientele. I have the benefit of significant scale of size of social media, and my online clientele numbers are still not wow compared to the scale of my social media. But then with the online coaching industry, I know lots of the people in this space. I've been at the conferences, I talk to them. It looks like everybody is doing great. Whether or not they're actually literally on a beach in some other country, a lot of them portray this image of doing very well, they're flush with clients, et cetera, et cetera. More of them than not are actually scared, frustrated, struggling. They're finding social media engagement is getting harder and harder. As my friend Jonathan Goodman says, you have a lot of trainers, competing in a noisy space of social media. He's got a great book called The Obvious Choice. If someone's more on the professional side of stuff, it's a great marketing book. It'll give you a lot of really good ideas. It's about finding communities, spaces, networks outside of social media. It can be online, but especially offline, but not just this generic. And I'm going to be a little uncharitable here, but the average online coach is completely undifferentiated. They have no meaningful brand and they have no defensible moat around their business and who they are. They're not a strong authority on a specific topic. It's I help 39 to 41-year-old, paralegal moms with 2.2 children. That is not a brand position, right? That is an elevator pitch. And sure, okay, like those are fine, but you don't own that brand position. Someone else can roll up and say that. It's not like, if anybody's familiar with my friend Brianna Battles, she's got a master's degree. She's just opened a gym. She's super badass in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but her brand, and she's got a moat around pregnancy and postpartum athleticism. She's got a certification there. She's the authority on that space. Again, I mentioned Jordan Shallow, Jordan Junta, Prescript. Those guys have a very strong expertise, defensible position, and a moat around biomechanics. Okay, training anatomy. If you look at my friend Allie Gilbert, the queen of men's health, she is all in on that particular brand. She knows a ton about stuff, everything relates to that. Again, she owns that brand position. And I can go on and on about people who have really strong footholds and years of expertise, and they weren't always as well known in those spaces. They're the outliers. They are not the average online coach. And then we have the influencer class coming in. You have, and I'm going to be kind of uncharitable here, but I'll use examples of people like Scotty K Fitness and Malibu Fit Max. These are scumbags. They are influencer scumbags they're frauds, they're fake. They've both been outed for fundamentally lying about who they were. There's bad behavior, especially with Scotty. And they've got very large followings. And in Max's case, certainly, Goob and I, one of the people who outed him, both have a clear understanding that he's a manufactured marketing concept by, there are marketing agencies, branding agencies that kind of create and curate some of the fitness authorities in the industry. Not all. And some of those people are just smart enough they have a good foundation. They just hire a branding and marketing agency to help them go to the next level. But those agencies also take people who have no substance and craft them because they have a certain look, certain image, messaging, etc. Yeah. They write a book, and then all of a sudden, like, they build them into this almost like fake authority figure. And I see lots of that in our industry. But it is not difficult for someone who has no traditional background in personal training or strength conditioning, who does not have much expertise, to be very good with video-based media, go viral, build following. I mean, it's challenging, but it happens frequently. And every online coach who isn't savvy about that is competing in the online space against these people who do this stuff at scale. Okay. And then you have, I think, people are good with media. I'm not going to say any names, but they tend to have large scale social media. Their social media is very viral stuff, but they will often offer online coaching, and it's often at a lower price point. Sometimes they will not be honest and they'll say it's individualized when it's very cookie cutter. Sometimes they will admit that they have assisted coaches. Sometimes they don't, but it's assisted coaches being paid minimally to take care of this stuff. And sometimes it's a very transparent, templated training program. That's maybe not half bad, and the value for its price is okay. But guess what? There's a lot of that out there, and that's competing against the one-on-one online coach who is struggling to develop a name for themselves. And while it's not one-to-one, I think it's much easier to become 5 Mile famous and crush on referral word of mouth for in-person training with your clientele and the people. I have numerous family networks who send me everybody in their network. And I've been working with, I think, at least 2 families alone, where I've been working with a lot of the members of family for well over a decade. I will be at a wedding this coming Saturday. I train, the bride is a friend of mine. The groom is a friend of mine. I knew them separately. I trained the bride's mom and aunt, the aunt's friend, and that entire, and her cousin. Her cousin will also be at the wedding with me. We'll be sitting at the table together. He's one of my best friends. I have trained well over 20 people from that family and friend network and coworkers of these people over 16 years.
Here you go.
Wow, it's crazy.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, I think that's like important for younger trainers to hear. It's like if you build a relationship, there's like one specific client can literally change the trajectory of your business. If you do a good job with somebody and you show a high level of care, they're going to tell anybody and everybody, and that can completely change the trajectory of your business. And then from there, you never know. Like they can literally change your life. So like the relationship building part of it is massive.
There's one more thing in all this that anybody who's a trainer, I would alert to, especially if you aspire to get online. There are good, reputable mentors who can teach online training businesses, but that space is also full of scumbags. It's full of predatory, aggressively priced, overpromised mentorship, where they'll highlight 40K a month, 50K a month, 60K a month. That's almost entirely bullshit. Somebody may have front loaded, full year of packages and some like effective sales offer. And here's the 50K a month. Well, but that's actually an entire year of something. It's not every month. It's not sustainable. The delivery is poor. It's the online influencer who doesn't want to be the in-person trainer. So I call it the high ticket, low effort model of online coaching, which is dead. That is a dead, dying business model. The fulfillment is mediocre. And so what happens when the fulfillment is very poor, the referrals aren't there, the effort's not there, that business is not sustainable. The business coach took their $10,000 a month cut, right? And I think that model is actually quite predatory. So there's a caution there of thinking that there's this panacea of online coaching and you're going to be set up for life and you're going to scale up your business and hire other coaches underneath you. Yes, there are a handful of people who've actually done that very well. Okay. They've also dedicated their lives to, again, a defensible brand mode, or they are full-time creators and they're very savvy with social media. Even though I've done well with social media traditionally, I'm kind of tired of it in a way where I don't want to move with the trends and change the way I do stuff and put a lot more time and effort into my social media to chase likes and views and a larger follower base, because I don't need those things to fuel what I'm doing within my in-person one-on-one, my online stuff. And the podcast is one of my favorite vehicles now. That's been growing really well. So I'm just not interested in being a full-time content creator online.
Yeah, I like that you said that, because I think people put so much stock in chasing trends on like the social media side of things and think, oh, that's the key to like success in the online space. But if you look, a lot of the busiest, most successful coaches, they have quite small followings. They just have a lot of trust and build up around their brand. So when people see their content, they're like, oh, this guy's legit. Like some of the busiest coaches that I know have very small followings, and they're okay with that because at the end of the day, they're making money and they're helping people, right? Like a lot of them.
Probably.
I'll give you a good example. You go ahead first.
Yeah, I think the idea is to be so busy you don't really have time to be doing a lot of social media, right? That like as a coach, that should be your goal. You're so busy working with people and helping people that you don't have time to post 3 times a day, you know?
Right.
And I agree. I also think we also want to be on guard against narratives, because I will stress test my own thoughts. It is very easy to turn around and be like, all right, I'm busy in person, this. People with large social media followings are bad. Therefore, I don't want to do the things that would maybe get that, when I think a lot of people might still be envious and want it, but then they weave a narrative why it's bad because they haven't gotten it. That is a narrative to be on guard against. I do think that if a personal trainer does see value in engaging with a social media following, and I've done presentations on this, there's still so many lessons, so much wisdom from your experience training people, that if you capture those ideas and you just find ways to be consistent and share that on social media, then sometimes it catch fire. I mean, I did that for years, and honestly, it did very, very well. I just don't have the same energy for it, but that's also, again, that's some of my narrative right now, because I just don't want to engage with it as much. I was going to say a very good example. Especially if anybody listening is more on kind of the gym owner side of stuff, go follow my friend Andy McCloy. He's a gym owner down in Huntsville, Alabama. He does not have a big following, but he is absolutely 5 Mile famous. He is a very, very skilled operator. He is legendary in that space. And for someone like Andy, yes, if gym owners around the world, because he's a gym mentor, if gym owners around the world found out about him and followed him, that would be valuable to him. But if random people and random fitness consumers from all over North America and the world suddenly found a post of his that had somehow gone viral, he's the last person to ever try to post something like that, then those followers are not only of no value to him, they probably would further hurt his engagement long term, because they're probably not going to engage with whatever else he's doing, which will mute him on the algorithm to the people that are local, that know him, that are gym owners, that would benefit from his ideas, and he could potentially benefit from who might hire him. So the chase, here's something that for fitness professionals, and I know this has gotten a bit more fitness professional centric, but again, I'll dance to your questions. I think a lot of fitness professionals are very caught up in the status chase. They seek fitness conference stages. They want to get on all the podcasts, and there could be a lot of good in that. They want a larger number in front of their social media, and it's kind of like the being fit on the gym floor thing. Yes, I have experienced that sometimes people will look at a larger number in front of your social media following and attribute authority to you. I am comfortable accepting that because I've been there, but it's a very inefficient long game to play if you immediately need clients. You think, I need to grow my social media following to get clients. No, if you do things really, really well, if you're a busy personal trainer, you nurture the people in front of you, you care about them, you happen to pull great lessons out of that experience, you're savvy enough with social media to where it grows, long run as a bonus, yes, it can help you. You don't need it. And I do think that a lot of fitness professionals are doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we've all gotten kind of carried away with the social media side of coaching and building out your like business card. But at the end of the day, it's like we're in this to help people, and if your integrity is in the right place and your values are on making an impact on the people in front of you, like the rest of that stuff always takes care of itself. I'm a big believer in that. Andrew, so I did want to pick your brain on a little bit more of the Fit Pro side of things. So if you were starting out in the industry over again, like, and you were looking to build a career and scale, what were the things that you would really focus in on in building out a brand and scaling it? You were starting from scratch.
Okay, so I mean, we've done a lot with the social media, but I think one of the smarter things that someone can do is figure out what you're interested in, and then find ways to take it and communicate it in a longer form, higher quality vehicle. So again, earlier in my career, a friend wanted to start a podcast. He left after 150 episodes. It's now been mine. I'm literally creeping up on episode 500. There's a bunch of different ways you can approach a podcast, but that has definitely been a great long form vehicle, something I find relatively low friction. Along the way, I hired another friend to be my producer in the back end to do the stuff that was higher friction for me. But for a long time, it was me and my friend, and then just me for a while. And I think long term, it's been worth the investment. And hell, now I have sponsors, which is actually super cool. I wasn't chasing them on day one. It wasn't about that. it was also a way to have conversation with industry friends, peers, people who aspirationally I like their media, I wanted to get to know. And a lot of those people have become friends of mine because I've been able to develop a relationship here, plus traveling to fitness conferences and seeing them in person. I think writing is a really valuable skill in the age of AI generated, what have you. I think the hype bubble has sort of tapered off a little bit in terms of the quality of content generation from AI. Smart people kind of knew that wasn't going to be that super in the first place. It's not to say that smart people can't leverage it for research and what have you, but I think there's a lot to be said for learning to be a great writer. If anybody listening, if you are interested in like a few great books on writing, DM me on Instagram. I will happily share you. I've got a whole bunch behind me. If there's a video component, you can screenshot and zoom in. There's a whole bunch of books on writing, but I'd rather curate one or two for you to start. And I liked writing. I started writing for my website, and then through the podcast, I got connected with one of the editors at T Nation. That turned into an invitation to write for T Nation. And once you're in that era, once you're on T Nation, you have made it, and it opens doors to other stuff. Things are different now, but now I'm writing on Substack. So if you're a fitness professional, I'm trying to write more like career stuff for coaches. That's where that content is. So I'm on Substack. Go check that out. I got a few articles. I got to get more on it. But find a long form content creation vehicle that is an expression for your creative ideas, the stuff you're interested and curious about, the things that you have great expertise in, but the things you're also learning as you go. A good example of this is my friend Luca Hocevar. He's an icon in strength and conditioning, gym owner, very charismatic, engaging persona when it comes to his media. But Luca is really well known for, if he is learning something, especially physical movement-based stuff, he'll turn around and he'll teach it. And he'll video him teaching it. And he's compiled a very large YouTube library. And that's one of the ways that he cements the learning, expands his expertise, but then also demonstrates authority and knowledge. And through a medium like YouTube, which is still a very good thing. So that's the next thing. Is it kind of your three pillars of long form content are audio, and that's podcasting largely, video, YouTube, and YouTube can also be podcasting, and then writing. And you just figure out forums for writing. Writing can be shorter form or longer form. And you can approach some of the social media platforms, and you can do your writing in like a whole bunch of different carousel slides on Instagram. You can go to Threads or Twitter. And yes, these things sometimes change over time. You can play around with article writing on Substack, LinkedIn. Now, here's a caution. Don't try to do all this. It'll overwhelm you. It's a terrible idea. But LinkedIn works very well for article style stuff. Now, I find LinkedIn very artificial and sanitized, and like the language that people use on it is not the way people talk in real life. But if you establish yourself in corporate networks and attract corporate type clientele, these are people who actually need and generally can afford personal training. It's a very good outlet, right? It's kind of like getting involved in local, BNI business networking sort of entities within the local space. These are not my speed, but I know personal trainers who've done very well by getting in those networks. Okay, don't try to do all this stuff, but the point is, if you can find outlets, medium, that align with your skills or skills you're interested in learning, that you find relatively low friction, that allows you to express your creativity and the ideas that are swimming in your head, because every trainer has these things. And then the biggest thing is like people have the imposter syndrome of like, who am I to share these things? Well, I don't know. It's like when you start, you're not going to have much of an audience, so you're going to develop skill as you go. So it's not like a whole bunch of people are going to be lighting up to criticize you.
Sure.
So just start, practice like you guys did with the podcast. I'm sure this episode is probably going to be better than maybe episode 1. Episode 100 will be better than this one, and so on and so forth. I see smiles. So yeah, right. That's just the nature of it. If you're not getting better, there's probably something wrong. So it's a long play and it takes extra time. But I think to distinguish yourself and build a brand, a platform, then I think finding long form media is a really great idea. I think that getting into local corporate wellness speaking, presentations, volunteering, et cetera, practicing the skills of public speaking is a very good thing. I've mentioned Jordan Shallow and Prescript a couple of times, but I think he's a good example. So the two Jordans, and I am probably going to miss some stuff, but they're both chiropractors by education, and they both have practice in person. They still both train people in person. Just Jordan Shallow will talk about how he travels around cities. Sometimes he can't even talk about who he's working with. Sometimes he's working with like, the highest tier of tennis pros in the world. NFL athletes, they do their prescript level 3 at, I think, the combine is the way that they do that. So they're working with some of the world's best, but they're also working with like a super executive level people and people that they can't even talk about publicly. This is literally on the most recent episode of their podcast. They're somewhere, I don't know, they've been doing their podcast, I think, as long as I've been doing mine. They started and they literally just reference how like they had 17 people listening on the early episodes, but they just kept doing it, talking about their expertise. That turned into teaching seminars at some point. And I don't know the true story of like the origins of Prescript, but somewhere along the way they decided that, okay, we have some ideas, we're going to teach this to some people. And I know Jordan in his early days was traveling around, and people like, I'm pretty sure my buddy Kenny Santucci in New York was one of the people. And I know that my buddy Don Saladino was another one, because they're very good friends. Let Jordan do a seminar in their gyms before anybody knew who they were. And there's a bunch of people who did this, and then you accumulate the reps and you travel and you live out of a suitcase. That's not going to be for everybody. Jordan is made of tough stuff. But along the way, that level of expertise grew. The media, the branding, the word of mouth. One of the things they've done well is I've done a couple of in-person stuff with Prescript. Jordan Shallow especially remembers fine details about people. He is one of the best storytellers. He can weave analogy into his presentations. He's highly engaging. These are practice skills. He's funny. But you accumulate those reps over time, developing relationships, and they've created an incredibly loyal ecosystem to the point where what they've done is word of mouth has grown on it. It is, I believe, the best type of education in that particular space. They've built more and more things upon it, and they've turned it into a very reputable brand with a really defensible moat and sustainability within the industry, while continuing to leverage that as the kind of expertise to attract very high level, high paying clients, some of which are the elite athletes of the world, and some of which are the invisible corporate elite of the world. Now, there's an outlier there, and it probably is a hard one to replicate. They did it. There are lessons within. Take the lessons. There's a lot of luck. There's a lot of perseverance. There's a lot of like unique personality elements to them. But if you add up all of the notable figures in the industry, all of the outliers, there's a lot of story. There's a lot of survivorship bias. There's luck. But you see similar patterns. Almost everybody who's had sustainability they've been enduring. It is worth saying, like, there are a lot of very notable figures in the industries that have gotten knocked down and had major business failures. People like Mark Carroll is out in Australia. I really like Mark. And he documents, he's very open about the ups and downs stuff. He's been very financially successful. But they've also had business partners steal large amounts of money from them. Chris Duffin, the founder of Kabuki Strength, the iconic powerlifter, it's fairly well chronicled. The point of time where he got pushed out of his own company in Kabuki Strength, and now he's bounced back and done other things. Lane Norton has been very public about business failures and conflicts with partners and whatever. And I mean, he's indomitable. That's part of his whole identity, is just being completely unbeatable and picking himself back up again. Brett Contreras, if I remember the story correctly, as he's told it, I mean, I think he was down to not much money years and years ago, and I'm trying to remember exactly what he did, but he created something, and it might have been his Booty by Brett program, but he put together something, and that just took off and blew up because he had years of writing for Teen Nation. I mean, again, it's a PhD, and he has a very strong brand, defensible moat around glute training, to the point where a lot of other people try to become glute training specialists, but he's the glute guy, right?
Yeah.
But and again, now if you look at him, he's, again, massive following. He's been very resilient. He's stayed in the game the whole time, and he's doing very well for himself. I could continue on to cherry pick these stories and these examples, but a lot of the people who've been very successful have also had very severe, very public beatdowns and losses in business and otherwise. They just kept getting back up again.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that was great insight on that. Andrew, so I do want to dive into more the coaching side of things
Please.
and interactions and thought processes behind things with lifestyle clients. So one of the questions I had for you is, when it comes to personality types and identifying how to communicate with a client, what's your strategy for that? What is your approach for breaking down barriers with clients and trying to get across to them like certain points to make lifestyle changes to like habits, nutrition, things of that nature? Like, what is your approach there?
I don't know if I can quantify that, and I hear it's a step-by-step thing. I mean, you work with different type of clientele. I think it all comes down to establishing trust. It is not going in and being an authority, even if people kind of expect you to, right? There's a lot of people show up and like, hey, I'm just going to like listen to what you tell me. That can be a bit of a trap because whether or not they start out and they want to listen and they say they will do it doesn't mean that they actually will, or there's not going to be some sort of resistance. So having, a warm, trusting, safe relationship, I think is important. Making people understand that I have a very soft communication style. I'm never going to criticize them for anything is really important. That it's safe, especially to let me know, especially with my online clients, because you're not there with them in person in real time. Like, hey, if you're hitting any snags or whatever, this is like when I want you to reach out to me. And then when you have the opportunities to not criticize, to not berate or anything that even feels like that, is be very careful with your language. It doesn't sound like a judgment. I think one of the best skills you can develop is not to go, and I think a lot of trainers do this, they go right to advice mode, whether it's in consults or with ongoing clients. Like, client says something and it's like, ooh, let me show you how smart I am. Let me show you how valuable I am. I have the answer for this. The client knows the answer most of the time.
Mhm.
Ask them questions. If you want to tell them something, pause on that, train yourself to ask more questions, be curious. If everything is rooted in curiosity with your clients, and it's not, I can't here are the 10 questions you should ask. It's not that formulaic. It's a skill you develop in knowing what to ask, but you can almost always lead someone to them stating the answer. And one of my favorite things to ask people is, when they do something, when something happens that goes against their intentions, their plans, their goals, I'll ask them. And again, you have to make sure you really are non-judgmental. I often say this, like, hey, there's no judgment in this, but what was the story that you were telling yourself when you made this decision? Make it safe for them to answer that, right? And just see what comes out of there and just keep asking questions. And the hard part is to train yourself to not just ask the first question, get the answer, and then say, oh, here's advice again. It's to ask and ask and ask and see where that takes you. I find that builds trust. I find that people feel very safe. They're not worried you're going to judge them, ridicule them, anything like that. And once they feel safe that way, great. And the other side of all this stuff is it can't all be emotionally exhausting, challenging, prodding questions, because even well-intentioned and empathetic questions could still be very fatiguing and tough to deal with. So a very big part of my conversation, my time with clients, is stuff that has nothing to do with training. They're doing their training, right? We will tackle things that are poignant. I will ask questions about how their nutrition is. They come in the door, I'm asking people, how'd you sleep last night? Have you had enough water? Did you eat? But in a non-judgmental way, because there's always those clients that will show up at halfway through the workout. They're kind of fading, and then they tell you they didn't eat anything, right? Well, guess what? You should be asking that right off the hop, especially if you know they have a habit of it, right?
Mhm.
But a lot of it is talking about shit that has absolutely nothing to do with fitness and nutrition. It is relationship development. One of my longer standing clients, he's one of the ones, he doesn't need me, but he shows up once a week, trains with me like clockwork, very reliable. We talk about Magic the Gathering cards, which I played in high school. We talk about Dungeons and Dragons, which I have a very big collection I just enjoy. We talk about video games and anything just nerdy ass culture. He's come in and I've been ordering and collecting some old D&D stuff. If anybody's watching the video, it's like, here's an example. This is like Dungeons Dragons 2nd edition Forgotten Realms stuff. So if anybody is like heard of like Baldur's Gate 3, the super popular video game, or God, what like more niche like Neverwinter Nights, or there's a whole bunch of other stuff. It's all set in this Dungeons and Dragons world called Forgotten Realms. Anyway, I've been ordering recently some old books that weren't part of my collection, and I accidentally ordered an extra copy of one because I thought I'd lost mine. Turns out I had it. So I gave my client, his name is Gunnar, and I gave him this extra. I'm like, here, just, and he thought it was the coolest thing ever because him and his brother apparently are like building some sort of like fantasy type board game that they're excited about. Who knows what they can do with it, right? I'm like, here, have this. And like, he just thought this was the greatest thing in the universe. It's no big deal to me, but it's that kind of depth of relationship. And I think that will go way farther. And I was talking earlier about my client who's a writer, right? It's so interesting. And there's another side to this. It's not just about the things they enjoy, but it's the intersection of what you enjoy in them. And it's a big part of sustainability. If you are working long hours as a personal trainer and you don't enjoy find the common ground between the clients that is genuinely interesting to both of you and bonding and high relationship, you're going to burn out. You're not going to be able to sustain this. So one of the reasons why I can do this for as long as I have is because I look forward to it. I enjoy it. I will often tell the last client of the day, because it's the best example. Oftentimes my last client of the day is someone I really like hanging out with. I'll tell them this. I'm like, one of the reasons why I can do this is because like I start my day 10 hours ago with my first client. And I think in the back of my mind, hey, I know I'm training you later. I get to hang out with you for an hour. They hear that from you. That feels great, but it's also true. I'm not gonna lie about it. And the converse is you get a client that you dread training in your system, especially if you're a trainer who's like really struggling. You feel like you're struggling. You're worried about business, whatever. That one client, the energy that you have, everybody else will feel it because you're dreading that person. That person will suck you down. Whatever is like frustrating about that client. One of the best things you can do is actually very professionally get that client out of your business, even if it frightens you, because the law of attraction is real. The way you walk through the world, your energy, if you have people in your system that are robbing you of that good energy, it will go with you wherever you go. It's subtle, but it's there. And I've experienced both sides of this stuff, and you got to clear that stuff out of your business, but you do it professionally.
Yeah, 100%. I love that you said that about like hanging out with the client because you genuinely enjoy it. Because I literally told a client the other day, I was like, dude, I'm only training you on Saturday because I like you. I was like, I don't train you on Saturday, so that means I like you. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, this is my day off. I was like, you're absolutely.
You think that client doesn't like value that? It doesn't make them treasure the fact that they get to trade with you on a Saturday and want to keep coming back and not quit on that time slot? You're damn right. It helps.
Yeah, I love that. That's a lot of how my coaching style has developed over the years, is the fact that I'm not digging for what I need. I ask them to give it to me, and it works so much better in both parties. Like, I'm not digging out, like trying to give more all of the things. And it helps develop a relationship long term. It's so much better. I love the way like you've explained that so well of how coaching actually is. It's not so much of like we're pushing and hard work and all the sweating and all the it really is. It might be less than 10% of that some of the times.
Yeah, so much of coaching,
so much more.
Yeah, so much of coaching really is just relationship building. That's what's so fun about it. Like you can teach somebody some stuff over time, but it's the relationship building side that I'm so addicted to. I think it's fun to like you find a common ground with a client, like you said earlier, something you guys both can bond over, and it's like putting your hands at that point. Like the relationship's going to be smooth, the sessions are going to be fun, and every time you guys show up, you're like, all right, we're talking football, we're talking Dungeons and Dragons, like whatever it is that you guys both kind of click on, you can just always feel that energy with that client, and that's a very reciprocated thing that people get addicted to that. That's where the networking and the strong foundation you have with those clients really takes off.
Well, I like that. I mean, when people learn this too, we're teaching people how actual coaching is, because I have so many people that come to me in that sense where you described how they're like, I'm just going to listen to whatever you say. And it never, ever has it ever worked out for me in my younger years of training where I told somebody, this is what you should do. And then a week later, we go back and revisit what I said to do, and they did none of it. Not even like they didn't even start just by hydrating in the morning. Like, wake up and drink a glass of water. Did you drink a glass of water this morning? Oh no, I forgot. I'm like, you asked me to tell you exactly what I did, and we couldn't even complete the water. So it's more of a developmental of like, what's the hardest thing? What we struggle with the most? Asking all these questions, and then developing over time so it's sustainable for the client. Yeah. So it's more of like, I'm not giving them a cookie cutter. Like, I could absolutely give you a cookie cutter thing of like what works for me, but it's not going to work for everybody. It doesn't work for hardly anybody else, because my life looks completely different at home than what your life looks like. The job, the wife, how many kids, what's your bedtime schedule, what's your routine. Everything looks so different across the board. So I can't just tell you exactly what you need to do to get the results. I have to ask so many questions, like from top to bottom, and it takes time. Now that's something a lot of people don't like. They don't like it, the time factor of things, of like they want the results, like they wanted them yesterday and they're looking for the results tomorrow. But sitting down and actually having those hard conversations of, listen, I want to help you long term sustainable, not just, hey, I lost 10 pounds last week. No, I don't want that. I want, because that's not going to last you a month. I want you to answer all the questions. I want to develop this thing where it's one step at a time. We see the long term goal. All right, cool. That's long term. What do I need to do tonight? Of like, okay, I need you to go to bed before 1 o'clock in the morning. Let's kind of practice on that for a little bit and then develop better habits over time and better just mental clarity for the client themselves to see, oh, okay, so this can be easy. I just was skipping all the important stuff that I didn't think was important.
Yeah,
So,
I like to look at like when you're building out habit changes for clients. It's like same thing as like what I do with nutrition is like instead of pulling out 5 different things in their food group, make one adjustment at a time.
yeah,
And incrementally adapt them to the changes. Same thing I do with nutrition. Same thing I do with like mindset coaching. Same thing with like getting them into the gym in general. It's like, yes, I do want you in the gym. We don't need to be in the gym 6 days a week. If we haven't been in the gym at all, let's get in 2 to 3 days. Let's get consistent with that. Let's build some sustainable habits. Then these things can start to snowball when we're getting in regularly. Then we can make more changes. But I think trying to do everything all at once, like it can get overwhelming and burn somebody out.
oh, quickly, very quickly. What we got next for him?
All right, Andrew. So next thing I wanted to talk to you about is the AI industry, like AI getting integrated into the fitness industry. What is your take on how that's kind of changed things, and where do you see it going in the future? A lot of people I know think that it's going to take away some components of our business, but I personally don't agree. I think you just can't take out the human relationship building component of what we do. I was curious what your thoughts are on that.
I think the future of the fitness industry is in a handful of business models. I think people will seek out and continue to seek out one-on-one, in-person, high relationship training. I firmly believe that. I'm witnessing that myself. I don't think humans fundamentally at scale will get away from that. There will be a subsection of the population that is very functional but wants a specific kind of support. Smart, savvy coaches will understand how to deliver a efficient, high quality, relatively low cost type of programming and nutrition. Now, there are going to be a number of apps and functions that will do this very well at scale at very low cost, if not like free. So, I mean, a couple of my sponsors are good examples. So RP Strength is one of my sponsors. They have their hypertrophy app. I use it for my own training. I notice a difference in terms of accountability. Like, I really like it. I've been plugged into RP Strength for over a decade for education. I know Dr. Mike Isertel and Nick Shaw. Nick Shaw literally goes to your guys' gym, right? And Nick is among my closest friends in the industry. They've been great to me. They're awesome. So I like what they do. That, as far as programming, is going to be as good, if not better, than what a lot of coaches can program at a tiny fraction of the cost. One of my other sponsors is Macros First. So it's a nutrition tracking app. The owner, Jacob, is working on some AI integration where, high quality, and again, it's, a lot of people are like, AI is never going to be able to take a photo and tell what the macros are, but he's working at a very high level to be able to reduce the friction of being able to literally take photos. There's a bunch of dimensions to it to be able to have it help calculate what's in your nutrition tracking. The free version is amazing. The premium version is very low cost. It's going to be very hard for a coach to charge high ticket price for low effort, low support, low relationship training. It's a grift. And as I said earlier, it's a dead business model. Smart coaches are going to have very high relationship, concierge-ish, high trust, high responsive online one-on-one coaching. And they're going to be able to charge reasonably well for it. I think, the stronger your brand is, the stronger your relationship is, the less you are beholden to market rates and the more that you can charge a premium for this stuff as long as someone finds value in it. Great. I also think that there's going to be a lot of relatively low cost, very high value quality programming, and where coaches are accessible in group-based models. One of my programs is an online group coaching program. I have a women's one. I've been doing it for 4.5 years. I'm actually going to get a men's one going as well. The women in it are like clamoring for one for their husbands and boyfriends. Great. It's relatively low cost. It is a templated program with a lot of flexibility within it that they really enjoy. They like it. And there's a community, but also they know and they trust that I will be pretty responsive. I have a soft touch when it comes to giving them feedback. So I'm there when they need it. So they get me and they trust they have access to me for when they need it. Otherwise, they're pretty independent. It's low friction for them. They're happy. I do well with that one. I like that a lot. I operate that one through one of my other sponsors, Train Heroic, wonderful online coaching software website program. And they do group coaching delivery really well, or people want to put up programs. And if you do a really good job with this, you can actually charge fairly reasonably from it. So I think there are going to be people who will, and there's going to be big money and larger companies that come in and do apps, AI-based apps coaching stuff at a very low cost. I do not think that trainers are going to be able to compete with that if their delivery and if their relationship and support is poor. Does that make sense? That is where I think that AI is going to disrupt the industry. I think that AI, but I mean, there's people who've been doing what I've been doing at scale without AI who are disrupting that anyway, right? I think that smart, savvy coaches will understand how to use AI to automate and make efficient, low value added tasks. And there is an argument, I don't use it for programming, but there's an argument that AI will be a very useful tool to even develop really good programs to free up coaches to actually be very interactive, supportive, do the question and relationship side of stuff. That stuff's fine. Where I think the business gurus, the scummy business gurus, and where I think the online influencer class intersect, they both want this, is this worship the altar of scale, where they think they're going to be able to systemize, automate, and scale themselves out of interacting with people. And one of the worst trends that I'm seeing, and I will push back at this, I have an article on my Substack, is it's not that all DM automation is bad. I think keyword DM automation to get people resources is fine if it's very transparent. There are a lot of people, if you go follow a larger account now, within 15 minutes, you'll often get an automated message. Sometimes it's very obvious it's automated. Sometimes they're trying to pretend because there's a built-in delay that it's really them when it's not. And more people are recognizing this, and more people are getting fatigued from this. Are you guys familiar with a concept called the tragedy of the commons? Ever heard this before?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's when you have a public resource, but that resource is finite in theory. The original one is, I believe it might have been Boston. There was a public grazing field, and a bunch of the different owners of cows had access to let their cows graze on the field. Now, there was no theoretical limit to how many, there's no rule against how many cows each owner could have on the lot. So therefore, individually, they were incentivized to maximize the number of cows they had on this public space. But what ended up happening, if everybody's doing that because everybody's trying to maximize their take from it, then it gets overgrazed to the point where it destroys the common ground, which is the tragedy of the commons. In this case, it's public trust. And what's happening is individual coaches are being incentivized to try to get as many touch points as possible, to try to sell as much as possible to the consumer base that's coming in. So everybody now who follows somebody new is getting this automated message. For years, I would send personalized real voice video messages. I can't do it now at scale, but to new followers sometimes. People will be wowed. If someone messages me, I usually hit it with a voice message back. It's really me. We now have people working on AI. This is already there, where they're training voice and video AI agents with someone's voice, with someone's video, enough samples, and on their media and expertise to try to replicate them. Some people will be somewhat transparent about it. Some people are not. They're trying to recreate themselves with AI. There will be, anybody listening, you will eventually have someone, when you follow them, they will send you a voice or a video message that will be AI generated, pretending to be really them. That is coming. And that is going to be the tragedy of the comments. It's already eroding the trust. I put a post not too long ago. I'm going to pull this thing up because it's on my Instagram. Forgive me, guys. Here, I put up my story. I got a lot of responses to it. And this thing actually, oh, wow. I said, sometimes I just want to comment on your post without triggering your DM automations. And it's like 244 comments on this thing. Let's just say that virtually everybody agreed with me. There were a few coaches that came in and sort of like tried to push back. There's a couple smart friends of mine. They know how to use DM automations very well. They're doing it ethically. But the consumer, when people start comparing notes on this, wait a second, you see this too? This is everywhere? Trust me, this is going to get, it's already creeping up into out of hand. It's going to get a lot worse. And it is going to absolutely erode the trust in our industry as the bad faith actors, the scummy influencers, this is the sort of crap, again, I'm going to, throw this Malibu FitMax guy under the bus, because this guy literally lied about having an IED go off in his face when he fell down drunk. It's verifiable. Goob again. There's video about this guy. The guy is a complete fraud in a marketing construct, right?
Right.
Feel good vibes is California. They did walk through grocery store aisle. Good vibes. He's a put on. He's a complete fabrication. And but problem is that's how desperate people were for positivity with all these stitch-based negativity in the industry, even like the evidence-based crowd or debunking all the charlatans. But again, it gets exhausting. So what ended up happening, this guy did a complete con job, put on about like feel good vibes, and gained like 1 million followers within the space of a couple of months because people are like, oh, this is a breath of fresh air. No, it was all fake and verifiably fake, right? He'd been lying for 10 years about this IED blowing up his face. No, just funky looking face, way too much filler in there. Sorry, I don't like making fun of how someone looks, but it's literally part of like the whole narrative. And I'm not saying that he's doing this, but he's the archetype that is going to turn around and try to maximize his own. And I get the incentive. That's the tragedy of the comments. His incentive to try to extract the maximum amount of value, even while destroying the public's trust in our entire industry and burning the whole thing to the ground. And that sounds a little bit extreme, but people are getting tired of this stuff. And trust already in influencers is kind of low. But people want to connect with you. They want to have a parasocial, they want to have a real relationship with you. There's a lot of people who have very strong parasocial relationship with, a charismatic, popular talking head figure, some of the big figures in our industry. And what are some people are unethically going to try to hijack that by scaling out their interactions, by faking that they're actually AI, and they'll fool some people, but people are going to catch on.
Yeah, you touched on a couple of really good points there, but one that I really wanted to kind of give some thoughts on was the personal touch side of the industry. I know for me, like I did notice this year that I feel like the online coaching space and the social media areas of the business has gotten really saturated. So I was like, all right, what can we do to create more like personal touch in the online space? Because obviously in person, like after a while, you get used to it. Like it's really easy if you're good at relationship building because you see these people physically in person multiple times a week to develop relationships. So I wanted to like see, all right, what can I do to add a layer of value to like the online coaching space with my clients there to just help them feel more nurtured and guided through their process. So like, I don't know if you've used like Loom videos. So I'll do like some Loom videos with client check-ins now. And then a lot of form view videos, like each week I'll have a certain workout on their training block that they're responsible for sending in training footage. And then we do like a breakdown of the Loom video with their check-in like each week. So like trying to find different ways to stand out and provide value to those people has been like a great thing, because you're right, like the AI and like some of those more gimmicky things have gotten in the way of people's trust with online coaching.
What you just described is brilliant. And I think there comes a point where you simply cannot scale out interpersonal interaction with everybody. And that's the mistake people are going to try to make with AI. They're going to try to use it as a top of the funnel, and then they're going to turn around and like, oh no, it's really them. But guess what? Once people figure out that you're lying to them in, implication, then that's going to damage trust right from there. I think you're going to go about this one of two ways. One is you just get really goddamn good at media and messaging to the point where you grow following, you grow engagement, if that's the mission, you want to play that game. And you deal with what comes with that. Like, again, I used Dr. Lane Norton as an example earlier, right? Lane, big following, great communicator when it comes to evidence-based stuff. But guess what? Because of the charlatans and grifters that he often goes after, there are the tribes on the other side who subscribe to the charlatanery, and they go after Lane pretty hard. I mean, he gets a lot of nastiness coming back his way. He's made a pretty thick skin. I admire that. I don't think I could do it. I do not want to play that game.
No.
And almost every other figure at that level, Jordan Syatt, big following, amazing human being, very evidence-based, plays at being controversial sometimes with the social media. He's really not. He's very, very, I think he's great at media, but I don't think his stuff is controversial or contentious. But he gets nastiness. Now, part of it is he's Jewish, and sometimes he literally gets just abhorrent, like hate-based anti-Semitic stuff. That's horrifying. But you can be pretty, just straight-laced and good evidence-based stuff and not super contentious. And at scale, you're going to get some negativity. If you want to play the game, fine. I think it's about the ratio of positive and negative. Okay. But if you can have that level of a parasocial relationship, people feel like they know you, they like you, they subscribe to your brand, great. And if you can also create a lot of very valuable resources where you enrich people's lives, amazing. And then if you also have a way for people to self-select, opt into, community and interaction. Maybe it's hiring you as a coach, maybe it's some sort of community thing. Jordan Syatt, again, with the Inner Circle is a good example. The RP community, they have ways that people can, like, they'll travel around and they'll do like in-person events. I've been at them as part of the brand, and you get to meet and hang out with Dr. Mike, right? So you can do that, and there's a little bit of effort to self-select into that. So there's a way to get access to people like that if you play that game at very long scale. Otherwise, the goal is you can't catch everybody, you can't reach everybody, but you do a good job, you show up, you be there, and you respond authentically, real you. Again, I think voice video is a big thing. Just go over and above, be an awesome human being. It's hard to scale it, but guess what? At scale of doing it within your capacity, because I don't think most people are going to be overwhelmed by the number of intakes and comments and inquiries and engagement on their media that they can't do it. Respect to people with young children. You're not going to live online. But if I can respond to all of my messages on social media, most fitness professionals can, okay? And I still work full-time in person. And then those people, word of mouth, they become part of your communities, they coach with you, etc. You continue to do a wonderful job with those people. You will have more work, you will have more financial reward than you need.
Yeah, 1,000%, I agree. I think when the client comes first and there's clear intent behind what you're doing and the integrity is there and you care about the people you're working with, like the rest of it really all does kind of filter itself out and take care of itself. Like at the end of the day, like if you stay in this and you're passionate about it, like long term, all the things that we worry about with like growth and retention and things like that, they all just seem to sort of take care of themselves over the years. But man, this has been a great conversation, Andrew. I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with us and give some wisdom on your time in the industry. Where can our followers find you online?
At Andrew Coates Fitness on Instagram is always best. I would love to have you follow me there. If you message me, you'll get a real response. It's going to be really me. No automations, I promise. I have been working very hard on my podcast. Depending on the time this is airing, I should be creeping up on episode 500. I have the legacy of the industry's leading authorities as guests, and I would love to have you guys check that out. If you're really interested in more of the fitness career-based stuff, a lot of the conversation we've had, I'm trying to get more articles written on my Substack, so check me out there. But you can just easily message me on Instagram, and I will happily send you any of these resources or links. So, guys, thank you for having me. I appreciate this. Absolutely. And if anybody, has found this through my media, I like to say this. You guys are, in the 20-something episodes now. And if there are coaches who are in the same place on their journey and trying to do a lot of the stuff that we talked about here, one of the best things you can do is actually connect with peers and like-minded people on the same journey. And so dig into some of the other episodes, connect with the guys on Instagram, on social media, expand your world, and hopefully, because again, I know this conversation got really career centric, and I hope that was still valuable and interesting to the lifestyle people who are listening. But if you're on the career side of stuff, keep your eyes out for the events that are going on in our industry. One of the best things I ever did was actually go and put myself in the room to meet the people I looked up to, spend time with my friends, and I've got a few things and coming up that I'm looking forward to, and I'm going to just be like sitting in the crowd enjoying things. That's pressure off me. But if you really aspire, I've gotten invitations to go and speak at events that I had attended, and that's a reward all of its own. It is not the career maker that I think a lot of coaches think it is. I wouldn't chase it per se, but it can be a rewarding byproduct of doing a lot of the other things we talked about here. So hopefully I'll actually get to meet you in person at some event. And if we ever do, please let me know you listen to this episode.
Absolutely. Well, that was great. Thank you, Andrew. We appreciate your time, and
Yes, sir.
we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.